Hello and welcome to episode 81 of the Alfa Romeo Driver Podcast, brought to you by the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. I'm Guy Swarbrick, and this week I'll be driving the Tonale Q4, the 280 horsepower four-wheel drive plug-in hybrid version of Alfa's C-segment SUV, along with some of its potential rivals. So we are at Millbrook, the proving ground for the SMMT test day. I'm just heading out to the hill route in the Tonale PHEV, which I first drove in the Yorkshire Dales a month or so ago. The problem I had then was we shared with another journalist and we split the route 50-50, and the half of the route that he got was a fantastic country road route through the Dales, and what I got was effectively the return leg, which was on very mundane urban roads through housing estates and industrial estates. Did get to try out the overtaking, which was very impressive. When the battery kicks in at the rear end, it's got some real punch for overtaking. But I didn't get to drive it anywhere that was halfway fun. Now I have the opportunity to do a couple of things. One is later in the day, I'm going to drive a bunch of rivals, hopefully. I've already had a go in a Maserati Grecale GT, which isn't really a rival, which is why I didn't record much on the podcast. Did the first route around the hill route, or first lap around the hill route behind a bus, which wasn't the most fun I've had. Then did another lap in sport mode, which was quite good fun. Currently cruising out in natural mode is showing me that I'm in EV, so that's quite interesting. I'm going to do 2 laps of the hill route. I'm going to do one in natural mode so that it's kind of half EV-y, and then I'm going to do a proper lap, if you like, in dynamic, and we'll see how different it feels. A little bit of congestion. I've got a bunch of hideous yellow Mercs in front of me. Oh, actually, no, one of them's a hideous yellow Porsche. So I'm just going to hang back a bit as we get round to the start of the hill route. It's quite an interesting route. It's quite a lot of quite tight bends, hairpins, speed bumps, as you can hear, plus some quite fast sections, and as the name implies, a lot of hills. So I'm just going to hold back a little bit and then get going. There's only a couple of places where you can overtake. I'm on the climb up to the first twisty bit, which isn't one of the places you can overtake. And unfortunately, this traffic jam in front of me has slowed down again. Still in natural mode, and it's okay. It's reasonably responsive, but it's really difficult to tell behind the traffic that I've got here, which are all quite capable cars on paper. There is a 55 mile an hour speed limit here, but we're currently doing 35, so I think people are really getting the best out of the experience here. I have got an overtaking point coming up, so we'll try and get past at least one of them as we go around. There's a few cones here though, which don't help. Oh, and we've got someone slowing to an absolute stop in a large Japanese SUV that will remain nameless. One of the hazards here, might have to do 3 laps. The bus that's ruined my first lap in the Grecale is currently parked in a lay-by halfway round. We're all doing 5 miles an hour again. Quite sure what's going on here. It's not usually a problem on the test day. Most people are quite happy to give it some beans around the course, but not my current companions on the lap. It's still pulling pretty well up the hills in natural mode. We'll see how different it is when we go up in dynamic in a minute. This is the steepest part now. Again, can't really give you a good impression because we are stuck behind this yellow traffic jam. It's 911, registration A911 at the front of this queue now. There is a section that's coned off in a moment with a 15 mile an hour speed limit, and I think this guy is just anticipating that. This is currently what should be the most fun part of the course, but that is not currently the case. So I'm hoping these guys will all peel off in a minute when I come around for my second lap. I've got a bright red Alpine behind me, which I'm sure is equally frustrated. There is a rundown from the entry to the hill route that will allow me to overtake these people if they go around for another lap, but hopefully the 4 people in front of me will all peel off to go back to the car collection area, and I'll be able to open it up a bit. As a courtesy, I'll let the Alpine through because I would hope that is slightly more rapid around here than the Tonale, although there is that 55 mile an hour limit. So, okay, they have all left, which is fantastic. So let's do this again. I'm just going to let him go past, and then I'm going to follow him around basically. Okay. I've got a Genesis that's trying to spoil my fun, and enough fun spoiled for the day. Thank you very much. Okay, here we go. So let's see if we can do a proper lap. Alpine is opening it up, so I will open it behind me. Remember, I'm still in natural for this run round because I didn't get a proper go round before. Actually, the Alpine's not much quicker than the other guys were. There you go. I don't suppose he's really had a sighting lap given that he went round at 15 miles an hour the last time. Okay, through one of the twistier parts, and it does feel very nimble, this Tonale. Actually taking a much tighter, neater line around that corner than the Alpine ahead. I does manage to get the power down quite nicely as you come out the other side. It's just so easy to hit every apex. There's a little bit of body roll, but really not very much. It is a Veloce version. I have the adaptive damping, which is not currently on in natural mode, but it is. As we come up to the hairpin, we've got enough momentum that the hazard lights have come on. Still clinging to the back of this Alpine. Again, he is limited. Now he's getting away from us a little bit now, but it really is very, very capable around here. Huge amount of fun. I'm really looking forward to doing this in dynamic. Okay, that was much more fun. One of the nice things about test day is the variety of cars. We've got one of the new Volkswagen battery camper vans in front of us. So I've got the Alpine in front of me. I've got a Ford pickup truck in front of that. Ranger, I think. There's a Toyota GR in front of a Hyundai Ioniq in front of that. And some big orange Japanese SUV at the front of the line. It really is quite the variety. So very impressed. We're back in EV mode, doing about 20 miles an hour as we follow the queue behind the electric VW camper van. Coming to the end of the lap, so we'll do one more. Okay, so we're literally coming to the end of the route. So I just switched it into dynamic and stiffened up the dampers. Okay, here we go. I have got one car ahead of me. I've got a big Genesis SUV behind me. One of the nice little features on the Tonale is the charge indicator. So running in EV mode, you get a blue Biscione on the dash. In dynamic, when you're getting the assist from the back end, kind of glows blue and green. Quite a nice touch. Obviously I've got the 1960s 105 style dials, because that's, for me, far the best looking version of the Conichiali. I'm now stuck behind an MG, which for an EV with a low centre of gravity is rolling a lot. A bit of a traffic jam now, so again, not the ideal test for dynamic, but I'm going to hang back a bit and then get ready and coming up to one of the two overtaking zones. So just position myself to get past this MG as we go round. Here we go. That's better. Now we've got to run at it. I think he thought his EV power was going to be plenty to keep him ahead of the Tonale. It was not. Tuck into a really tight corner as we go into a 14% gradient, and we're speed limited by the route speed limit as we go up the 14% gradient. We're now going. There's a 21% gradient that we're not using today, but this one's still pretty steep. Okay, and again, I have to slow down slightly to keep inside the speed limit. A really tight turn at the top of this gradient, and again, comes around it beautifully with almost no body roll. And we're now on to one of my favourite sections, unfortunately, back into a traffic jam. And there's another Tonale in the middle of that traffic jam, with some sort of hot Golf in front of us. It's not an R, it's just a bit of GTI, I think. Obviously needs 4 exhaust pipes. That was, great fun, and that's the bit of driving that I didn't get when I was out on the Yorkshire Dales. One more thing here, I am authorised for the high-speed bowl. So I'm going to take the opportunity to do that on the way back to the pad. We are going out onto the bowl. So for those of you not familiar with Millbrook, the bowl has 4 lanes. Each one has a minimum and maximum speed, which is kind of the natural speed for the bowl. There's nothing on, I'm just coming out into lane 1. There's a warning about using lane 1. So I'm in lane 2 now, moving up into lane 3 and up into lane 4. So lane 4 has a minimum of 75 miles an hour and a maximum of 100. We're currently doing 90, still accelerating, and there we are doing 100. So you should be able to hear a little bit of road noise, but it really is very quiet, very stable. There is a 5th lane ahead of me, or above me, which has a minimum speed of 100 miles an hour, and I believe a maximum of 140. We're not authorised to use that today, so stick into lane 4. Absolutely rock solid at 100 miles an hour. Obviously these lanes are designed so you have an absolute minimum of steering input. You should just follow it around, and it does. I think it's a 2-mile round circuit. So we are well around that. I'm going to do 2 laps and then back in. So I'm just at the point where we join the pole. So I've got about 3/4 of a lap to go. Steady 100 miles an hour. Yeah, absolutely no dramas whatsoever. So that's the Tonale pretty much done. Really backed up what I felt as a passenger on the rides that I did in the Dales. Much more fun behind the driving seat. I can't wait to get one for a longer time and maybe head back up to that route in the Dales again, because that was a fantastic route. Let's see how the Tonale compares against its rivals. I'm going to start moving down through the lanes, decelerating as I go. I'm 1/4 of a mile from the exit. Nothing around me, and we are heading back to the pad. So that was the benchmark set. The next car I drove isn't technically a rival, but given that Alfa Romeo and DS will be sharing showrooms for the next few years at least, and we have lots of reports of Jeep salespeople trying to switch sell Stelvio customers to Jeeps, I thought it would be interesting to take out the French brand's slightly larger SUV, just to see if there was likely to be much crossover. I am in the first of what you might call the Tonale's rivals. This is a PHEV DS7, or DS7, I guess. It said bonjour to me when I got in, and then it started playing Radio 2. Of course it did. I upset the PR manager for DS last year when I described the DS5, I think it was, that I drove, as being a bit like a tart's boudoir. But that does not go away. There's lots of kind of gratuitous diamond-shaped switches. The engine start button is a diamond-shaped button in the middle of the dash. There's a really ugly BRM chronograph clock that comes out of the dash. But the interesting thing about it, I think, is that it's 4-wheel drive PHEV. It's probably, I would say, more Stelvio-sized than Tonale-sized, but it's the hybrid bit that I'm kind of interested in. Again, we're taking this out on the hill course and the bowl. Yeah. One of the things that people often say about being in an Alfa is it's just a lovely place to be. There's a famous James May quote about it like being in a cafe in Milan. I don't know what this is like. It's a really, really horrible place to be. Everything about it is just trying far too hard and failing as far as I'm concerned. It drives okay. It's quiet. It's a little bit of a choppy ride actually for a luxury barge, but even getting out towards the high-speed route, it's just a little bit of roll and wobble to the suspension. I mean, you expect a Citroen to be softly sprung and comfortable, but it's not really that. It's horrible. It's just nervous, I think, is probably the word I would use. Tightens up a bit as you get up towards the route speed limit, but not a huge amount, to be honest. There's still a truck on the start of the hill rate. So I'm now at that windy hill section up to the first twisty part. So let's see what it's like when you press on a bit. Again, you should have petrol at the front and a little bit of electric push from that. Oh, it does not want to go around corners. Yeah, it feels big and heavy and imprecise and wallowy. And I'm not a big Citroen fan. I owned a BX years and years ago. And, the appeal is supposed to be, as far as I'm aware, that they are soft and comfortable and yet still have some kind of poison control. And this poison's a bit strong. But there's not a lot of control. I'm having to move around in the seat just to keep myself centered. It's got plenty of go for a big heavy car, which it is, but it just doesn't, not too bad on the hairpin, although it's throwing me around, but it did stay more or less where it was pointed. Back into one of the tighter swoopy bits, and this is one of my favourite bits. So here we've got a right-hand turn into a very cambered corner and then up the 14% incline. Again, feels a bit more laboured than the Tonale did. We're coming up to the steeper section now, so we'll see how that goes. If you remember in the Tonale, I do have a car in front of me, but in the Tonale we were speed limited. Yeah, we are just about. I could go up here over the 55 mile an hour limit, but it just doesn't feel like it wants to go in the same way. And I suppose it shouldn't. I mean, part of my problem, if you like, part of my confusion about the DS brand is that it started out as Citroen's kind of sporty brand, which was weird given the heritage of the DS. And it's now evolved into something which is kind of the luxury brand, which is much more in line with the DS goddess history, but it just doesn't inspire in any way. It's just trying too hard is the best way I can describe it. The upholstery has hundreds of little leather sections. There are stitched kind of sunbeam effects on all of the. Actually, they're not stitched, they're pressed. Sunbeam effects on the dash and the doors for no obvious reason. Yeah, I mean, that's probably my summary of DS. It exists for no obvious reason. Yeah, I don't think Stellantis are going to like this podcast, but I just cannot imagine who this is aimed at. It's not comfortable enough to be a luxury cruiser. It's not sporty enough to tempt people away from Mercedes and BMW and Audi. I guess it's probably, there is a section of the Mercedes and I guess Volvo buying public that are on the Mercedes side certainly not bothered about or interested in the performance side of things. And I guess it kind of sits, I don't know. No, I really don't get it. We're out onto the high-speed bowl now. It does. Yeah, I mean, it's getting me up to 100. A lot more slowly than we were before, but it's getting there. And we're there now. Getting more wind noise than the Giulia or the Tonale. So again, doesn't really fit with the kind of luxury branding. I remember I did a trip, which I bored some of you about before, from Nice to the UK in a Rolls-Royce Wraith and an Ariel Atom. And we stopped halfway home and had one of those Top Gear-like conversations about if you had your dream garage, if you were able to buy any car you wanted, how far down the list would the cars we were in be? And I think we all agreed somewhere in our top 10 we could find a place for an Atom because it was so much fun. None of us could imagine how many cars we would have to own before we got to the point where we said, you know what I want now is a Rolls-Royce Wraith. And I have to say, this would be much further down the list. It's just, I mean, competent, but horrible place to be. Nasty. Don't like it. So first car I've been in on the high-speed bowl where I've done my part lap and I'm coming back in because I just don't want to be in this. So you've got all this acres of tat, and then in the middle of the dash between two USB-A ports, both USB-A ports, no USB-C ports that I can see, there's a 12-volt port with a cover on it that looks like it's in a caravan. I'm just, no. I'll take a picture to include in the magazine write-up of today. But if anything, it's worse from the outside than it is from the inside. Execrable thing. President Macron of France chose the DS7 as his official transport, apparently. Maybe it looks better from the back seat. It's a 1.6 litre hybrid power plant too, but it has a lot more work to do than the smaller engine in the Tonale. Sticking with the theme, the next hybrid SUV I got my hands on was probably closer to the DS in terms of target market. I think. I have no idea what the DS's target market is, but it's probably a more sensible or at least a more conventional choice. And now, as they say, something completely different. I am in a Lexus, and slightly odd to say, I've been in plenty of Lexuses, but usually in the back. And this is the first time I've driven one. This is an NX 450H Plus, which I have in Sport Plus mode, because why wouldn't you? And I guess this is probably the car that's probably closest to the DS7 in terms of target market. In this spec, it's quite a lot more expensive. Again, it's probably somewhere between Tonale and Stelvio in terms of size and spec. It's 62 grand. But it's a hybrid powertrain, which is really what I'm interested in at the moment. It could not be, given that it's a luxury SUV, it could not be less like the DS7. All very understated, black leather and piano black trim, fairly decent central dials, very modern and electronic, nothing like a modern Alfa's Conchiali. Massive iPad style screen in the dash, which I really don't like, but that is a personal thing. I know lots of people do. It's kind of smaller than a Tesla, bigger than a Tonale. Initially, at least, seems to handle okay. I can't do this one on the hill route, strangely enough. I'm sorry, I can't do this on the bowl. It's not available for that, but we are now on the hill route. Very uninspiring. It sounds and feels a bit like a washing machine. It's quick enough. We're pushing the 55 mile an hour speed limit already as we enter the hill route, but if this is Sport Plus, again, it's not very sporty. Nose tucks in a lot better than the DS7 did, but it would be hard for it not to. And it's very wallowy. Again, not as bad as the DS7, but not a patch on Tonale or Stelvio. So you'd not be choosing between the two on dynamics. Very, very lazy steering rack as well. Again, spoilt by the super fast rack on the Tonale, but I'm just going to position myself to be overtaken by a 595 Abarth because I don't feel like I can push on the way he's going to want to. So we're now entering the way. Whoa, nose just went massively wide. I would say this is the first thing I've driven, including the wallowy DS7, which actually feels actively dangerous on this course at the speeds that I've been driving the other cars. We'll see how it handles some of the twisty sections, but it just doesn't want to turn in. No, it's just so big and heavy, and you just wouldn't. It's the first time I've had to brake going into the big cambered corner on the start of the 14% rise, and sounds really laboured as it accelerates up here. I'll have a look at the spec sheet in a minute and find out what's sitting below the lump. But the other thing is it has a head-up display that actually becomes quite intrusive as you climb steep hills. I'm hoping I'm still recording because my recorder's just gone flying across the floor because there's so much body roll. It's just sat there where I've put it in the other cars I've driven, but not this one. But I guess this is good news for DS because this is much, much worse than that DS7. Horrible thing. People like these, apparently. I should probably give it another lap in a less sporty mode just to see whether it's more controlled on a softer damping setting. Because, as I say, it does feel quite nervous, but still doesn't turn in. Really, really strange. Okay, so I'm now in Eco mode. Those are the options: Eco, Sport, and Sport Plus. So this is dull as it gets mode. Let's give this another go. That little bath has gone off into the distance. Oh, the noises are really, really nasty. I'm sure it will do 300,000 miles, being a Toyota-derived vehicle. I can't imagine wanting to spend 300 in it. Actually, really uncomfortable, unsupportive seat as well. Oh, it's just horrible in eco mode. Nope, don't like this. But it's an interesting, lots of people have said the Tonale is expensive. And as I said, this is slightly bigger. It's kind of Stelvio priced, or Stelvio sized rather. But the Stelvio is, there's no comparison. God. Yeah, it really likes to be sent an invitation well in advance of a corner. Lots of body roll, but more than the body roll, it's the lack of precision. Just does not want to go around the corner. Okay, we're at the place where it ploughed on before, so let's try a slightly different line. It's slightly better when you're not setting yourself up to be passed by another car on the right, but it's still not. No, it's really, really, you just have to slow almost to a stop to go around tight corners in a way that even the Citroen didn't require you to do. Sorry, it's not a Citroen, it's a DS. This is... and now we're on the twisty bit and alone. Right, we're going into that cambered right-hander again. You do have to brake on... No. That is... Yeah. There are lots of cars that will put you into a ditch if you press on too much, but I can see it happening in this quite modest speeds, and it's struggling to get up the hill. It's the first car I've not managed to get in eco mode, to be fair, but it's the first car that I've not gone up the hill, the steepest part of the hill, at the speed limit for the venue. That is, and now we're on the nice twisty bit, and it is, I think it would be fair to say this is not what this was designed to do. And that's just as well, because it doesn't do it. Still, I had a very large map showing me where I didn't want to go, and now it's showing me where I do want to go, which is to take this back. Really, 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 really don't like this. So the car I've been waiting to get back into, I drove it a year ago before I'd driven the Tonale, and I'd be interested to do a comparison afterwards. Actually following it back to the pad is the Volvo XC40 Recharge, which I think is, from what I've driven so far, unfortunately the Jeep PHEV that I was hoping to drive had a puncture, so it's unavailable all day because Stellantis process doesn't allow them to just go to Quick Fit and have a new tyre fitted. So it is completely out of action all day because it had a puncture and no spare wheel, which is a shame because it would have been nice to revisit the dynamics of what is essentially a Tonale underneath. As I say, I drove that last year and it was incredibly agricultural compared to subsequent drives in the Tonale. Even the aircon on this Lexus set to 16.5, and I am sweating buckets. I've just put it down to low, and it is just starting to cool down a bit, but it's still One of the reasons I've never driven one is I don't, like DS, I don't really get the brand. And now, having driven one, I'm none the wiser, really. I think I'd rather have a Toyota which is at least honest about the fact that it's a dull Japanese box. I'm not a big fan of piano black, I have to say. I know it's supposed to be posh, but it just looks cheap. This is obviously a press fleet car, so they don't get treated well, but all of the interior fit and finish is just covered in scratches. It's not going to be very durable in everyday ownership. Interestingly, I learned as I was putting the podcast together that NX stands for Nimble Crossover, which shows a remarkable degree of chutzpah on Toyota's behalf. It's also a 2.5 litre hybrid power plant compared to the Tonale's 1.3, and it is in the same size class. So if you feel an overwhelming need to spend £15,000 more on a much, much worse car, this should definitely be on your list. My final Tonale rival of the day, I did play with the Giulia Competizione, a Stelvio, and that VW ID Buzz electric camper van as well, is the one the press have driven alongside it most frequently, with the Tonale usually getting the nod from the writers. How close would that come? Okay, so as I hoped, we are now off in the Volvo XC40 Recharge. I thought I'd driven one of these before, but so this is a left hooker, which will make life interesting going around the hill route because I'm very used to being on the other side of the car. This has a one pedal mode, which is kind of maximum eco whatever, maximum recharge. So I'm going to do 2 laps of the hill route, one conventionally, and then I will pull over and I will do another one in one pedal mode. Strange kind of retro dash. Lots of black plastic, and it's not particularly nice black plastic. More piano black. And then the first portrait mode, big screen in the middle that I've come across, in almost looks like a 40s Bakelite kind of surround. It's piano black with vents in chrome, and it's kind of, the surround is off square. It's wider at the top than at the bottom, but then the screen is just actually looks like it's an Android tablet. Most of the iconography looks very much like Android. Digital dash, I guess the binnacle is probably as close to the Tonale as anything else that I've driven. It's not a bad place to be. It's probably my second favourite cabin after the Tonale, but a long way behind the Tonale. But it's not horrible, unlike the outside. It's one of those cars that kind of, they've decided that modern cars don't need a grille, so it's got this big flat expanse of body colour where the grille would be. There's a McLaren coming off the hill route, which isn't available for us to drive today. Okay, so comfortably up to the 55 limit as we enter the hill route. Actually following a early Porsche Cayenne with a roof box on it in sort of rally raid decals. A bit of an odd beast to find on here, but hopefully that should be rapid enough not to hold us up, although it isn't. Okay, should have taken the chance to get past him while I could. Handle's okay. I'm going to back off a bit so I can go into this next corner where the Lexus tried to kill me. Actually, no, it's a bit further out. Into the twisty bit with the U-shaped hairpin. Bit unfair to judge given how slowly this Cayenne's going. But, wow. It's kind of okay. It's not spectacularly good, but it's competent. Quite a bit more roll than the Tonale. A lot more roll than the Tonale, actually, and a bit of jitter. It's not as planted as I would like. Okay, so now we're coming to Lexus Death Corner, and it's absolutely fine going around there. I would have gone past the KN in this overtaking area, but he decided to take up both lanes at the same time, which is unfortunate. And now he's going around the hairpin at 15 miles an hour. Excellent. Jesus. Yeah, just cut right in front of me. So I might do automatic intervention collision avoidance. It's come up on my dash. Not surprising given the fool in front of me who just literally changed lanes as I was coming past him in the overtaking zone. Okay, concentrating quite hard to make sure that I know what he's going to do. So I'm going to do one more lap in 2-pedal mode, and then I'll switch it into 1-pedal mode for the third lap. Hopefully not behind this fool. Now, this is a problem that I've had on other cars. I'm quite surprised to have on this one. The mats don't fit, so the mat is sliding under the pedals, which is making life interesting. Oh, good. I think so. He's going for another lap. So I will have to get ahead of him. Oh, no, he's not. Good. Absolute idiot. Okay. Here we go. So I've got a bit of traffic ahead, but I'm going to... nothing behind me, so I'm going to back off here. Just take it really easy as I come onto the course. Unfortunately, everybody else is doing the same. There's a Porsche 928S ahead of me, which is available to drive. Okay. This is an overtaking area, but it runs out quite quickly. I have a Volkswagen ID3 in front of me, a Volkswagen Golf R. Yeah, I think we're going to have the same problem on this lap that we had on the last lap. This is the third or fourth time I've done this day, and it's by far the busiest, and that has not improved the experience at all. This is not bad actually. It turns in quite nicely. It has got a bit more roll, moving around in the seat more than I did in the Tonale, but it's not half bad. Let's try and get past this ID3, which I have done. Now stuck behind a 928S. I've never been able to say that before. Hopefully, when we get through these twisty bits in a minute, he'll be. I think he's taking it easy, showing a classic sports car a bit of respect. Don't mind that. Okay, try to take the other lane and pass him as we go up the steepest part of the gradient. It's a bit narrow. I'll stay where I am. Yeah, I mean it's not bad. Holds the line around tight bends quite nicely. Pretty much goes where you point it. Try and get ready to do my third lap, which will be in single pedal mode. Volvo very brave, let me out in single pedal mode because they don't know I've never driven a single pedal car before. Yeah. Okay. Coming round again. Driving. 1-pedal drive. I'm not sure this is a good idea on the hill route, but here we go. So I am now in 1-pedal drive. Sounds like an address, doesn't it? Where do you live? I live on number 1 pedal drive. 1-pedal drive. Okay. So I didn't think I was going to like this, and I really don't like this. Let's see how it goes. So I am coming up through the first twisty part, the first hill climb, and it's okay. I mean, we're doing close to the limit. It wallows a bit, but it does turn in. The problem with a 1-pedal drive is it always feels like it wants to brake. I suspect you would get used to it, but it kind of over brakes and under brakes. Yeah, it wasn't enough for that corner. Somebody's talking to me. I assume it's the radio's come on, but that's interesting because I haven't turned that on. Interesting. Okay, so now we're coming to the corner where the Lexus tried to kill me, and yeah, I mean it's interesting. You presumably hear the radio now. Very, very bizarre. Trying to find... Oh, it's a traffic update, that's why. Okay. Very, very weird. Yeah. I think I would get used to it, but wouldn't want to have it on. It slows you enough to be unnerving, but not enough to be helpful. There you go. Let me try and get past them behind a Nissan Townstar van. Okay, so we are coming up to the steepest section. It's the first time I've had the ability to give this its head. And apart from the fact that it always feels like the one pedal braking system is trying to strangle whatever you're doing, it did cope with that remarkably well. You can't rely on the one pedal, so it kind of over brakes when you just want it to ease off a bit, and then under brakes when you actually need it to stop, which is not particularly useful. I guess you're not going to be driving at 55 round a hill course most of the time, so maybe it's not so bad. Okay, so far the best of the rest. So I spoke to a friend of the podcast, Rob Lake, earlier on about what I should drive while I'm here in terms of Tonale rivals, and he gave me a long list of which there's nothing here. So he suggested the Cupra Formentor Hybrid, which isn't here, the Audi Q3, which isn't here, the BMW X1, which isn't here, what else did he suggest? A couple of other things. Range Rover Evoque, not here, and the Mercedes-Benz GLA. Now that might be here. I'm going to have a look for that next, and that will be, if there is one, that will be the last of the cars that I get to drive. The XC40, I think because it's left-hand drive, is not available for the high-speed bowl, so I don't have that pleasure. Yeah, this one pedal is not my thing, but as a rule, this wasn't terrible. Even at kind of urban speeds, as I'm coming into the holding area, I still feel like the one pedal is over braking as you come off the throttle. I guess you kind of get used to feathering the throttle so that it becomes a bit more fluid, but yeah, no, don't like that. The rest of the car, though, absolutely nothing wrong with it. I didn't get to drive the Mercedes GLA in the end. They didn't have one of those either. So that was almost the end of the day, although I did do another lap of the hill course in a Tonale Q4 with a couple of cameras on, which should be on the club's YouTube channel shortly. The full write-up of the Q4 will be in the June issue of the magazine, which should arrive in around 2 weeks' time. My conclusion from the day: if you want a compact SUV that drives like an Alfa and feels like an Alfa from the driver's seat, you only have one choice, and you won't be disappointed. Nothing else I drove came close, but I will be trying to fill the gaps amongst the car's other rivals over the coming weeks and months. The next episode of the podcast will be in 4 weeks' time on July the 2nd. Episode 82 will be available to download from Podbean, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Podcast Addict, and everywhere else good podcasts are found. Until then, stay safe.